Hello, welcome to the dollhouse. I am the doll. A random content creator named My World popped into my feed a few days ago with a video about black sororities. She wonders if non-black women should be allowed into black sororities. I'm not sure what sorority that she's in, but she's very likely a member of one of the Divine Nine, historically black Divine Nine sororities. She feels like black women gatekeep their institutions poorly, and that her black sorority is one of those institutions that should be gatekept. This video is about the hypocrisy among so-called blacks and how being exclusionary stunts expansion of the organization that she's in, and it limits the reach of their brand of finer womanhood, building influence that they would otherwise benefit from. It limits them from building that influence. So I'm going to play a few clips from My World, and then I will point out the hypocrisy and then try to understand a few of her reasons for feeling the way that she does.
Should non-black women be allowed to pledge black sororities? And the impetus for this discussion today was my undergraduate chapter, which is where I pledged almost 30 years ago, sent out a newsletter, bridge the gap, create a liaison, whatever you want to say, so that, old heads will know what's going on the yard. And when I opened up the newsletter and read it, I was surprised to see what I thought were two non-black women in the sorority. So I sent it to a couple of, like my special, my Sands, and my club, and of course I had things to say. And so one of them was like, "Oh, stop!" One of the girls is an Ethiopian. She looked Indian to me. So, I later on said Ethiopians don't consider themselves black, but okay, I'll let that slide because Ethiopia is in Africa. But the other one was Mexican chick. In every sense of the word. I'm gonna just leave it there. And not one that fits the stereotype at all. So I was like, what in the black Jesus? What? I said, y'all know it went off. So I was like, basically, this is unacceptable. And so I got the, message from the people in my little chat saying, "Oh, we're inclusive, and how can we exclude other people when we've been excluded?" And blarney, blarney, blarney. And those girls are, they're studying abroad and have great GPAs, and I read their bios and blah, blah, blah. And so I pointed out the fact that people from Spanish-speaking countries have their own sorority. Hey, LJ. LJ says there are non-black women in black sororities. Heck, there are non-black people at HBC. Girl, I know that. I know, but I'm saying should there be? And especially when I see it in my own chapter where I pledged it. When I remember when I was there, there was a biracial girl who wanted to pledge, and her in her interest letter, her reason for wanting to pledge was to connect with her black side, and they denied her, but they gonna let a Mexican in? But girl, so anyway, let me keep going. So, and granted, I know things have changed. This is not, the 90s, it's 30 years later.
So in this first clip, she says that an email newsletter that she got from her sorority's chapter at her alma mater showed a Mexican and an Ethiopian as new members of her sorority. She thought the Ethiopian was Indian, and she understood why they would admit her, even though Ethiopians don't really consider themselves black, which is a topic for another video. But she just totally didn't agree at all with her sorority welcoming the Mexican girl. And she says that because they have their own sororities, and she could have joined a Spanish-speaking sorority. She also shares that she went to a PWI, a predominantly white institution, a predominantly white university. And she saw so many different Greek letter organizations of all races. And she feels like people should really stick to their race, I guess. Now, I highly doubt that any of the other organizations' members explicitly, try to say that they should limit membership based on race, because they would probably lose their job, get canceled, get kicked out of the sorority. But she's doing it. And, I guess it's because no one can really identify what sorority she belongs to, because she is, anonymous on YouTube. But even her sorority sisters, that she expressed her disdain for this concept to, if they were in a different organization, they might turn her in, because discriminating based on race in America is illegal. It's illegal. And, I don't think that any of the other organizations that are at her school limit membership based on race. And I don't think that Black Greek letter organizations should be the exception. And it's what our ancestors fought so hard for during civil rights. They wanted equal opportunities and not to be discriminated on the basis of race. But yet, she wants to discriminate against others. It just sounds so hypocritical to me. And some people might be like, yeah, well, what about the white organizations that exclude blacks? Sure, yeah. There are many white organizations that have excluded blacks and probably will in the future. However, neither them or her or members from other Black Greek letter organizations should be foolish enough to say it out loud, because it's illegal. Also, white organizations get away with discrimination because they make the barrier of entry so high. They don't necessarily discriminate overtly. Places like co-ops and neighborhoods and country clubs, they will make the barrier to entry so expensive. They will make it so hard to get in that they gatekeep people from lower classes more so than they do race. Like when you see people of color sprinkled among ranks of the exclusive white spaces, those are usually the best, most capable people ever. And they're the type of people that any organization is usually excited to welcome as members, regardless of race. So perhaps these sororities would benefit from raising the bar instead of trying to gatekeep based on race. Just try to gatekeep based on excellence. But anyway, we'll talk about that later. No, so I don't believe that it takes away from so-called Black culture when people of other races celebrate and revere the contributions of organizations like the Greek letter organizations and the founding members of these organizations, revering what they did and what they stood for. It's awesome for the brand of femininity that these organizations say that they want to promote. And when people borrow from other cultures, it usually shows admiration and reverence. It usually proves that that culture has desirable traits. And one such culture is the Society of Ancient Greece. Black Greek letter organizations lean heavily on ancient Greek culture, super heavily. They use the Greek letters in their names. They are organizations founded by so-called Black people, by the American descendants of formerly enslaved people. But they didn't use Yoruba. They didn't use Egyptian hieroglyphs. They used the Greek culture and mythologies to create the rituals and ceremonies for their organizations. But now they want to gatekeep sorority from people of other cultures. It just seems hypocritical to me. Anyway, here's another clip from her video.
Got told 100 ways to Sunday, you not black, you not like us. Black men gatekeep blackness all day, but Black women do not gatekeep Black womanhood for anything. Everybody can come to the picnic. Everybody can do what we do. It's just ridiculous. I was just so disappointed. So, of course, my friends are in the woke brigade. Now, they work in HR, so they have to be, woke and all that stuff. And I can see that stuff for the business world, but I'm like, we're not at work. We're talking about our sorority and you seriously think that this is okay. To me, it's a slippery slope. You know, you let in non-blacks, next thing you know, it's going to be people identifying as black women in there. Even if they don't have their organizations, which they do, that's not our problem. Just because we've been excluded in the past from other areas doesn't mean we have to include everybody into our areas. I said the next thing you know, there are going to be men wearing dresses who identify as black women. I said, and then what y'all going to say? You know? Because they have good GPAs and travel around the world and study and everything, that makes it okay. And of course, they had nothing to say for that. You know, they brought up the fact that Kamala is biracial. I said, that's the thing, though. She's biracial. She's half black. This girl is just Mexican. Her whole name Mexican. Ain't no kink to the hair. She just a fat Mexican girl, like houseway. So, of course, they told me, how we should be inclusive. And if there's any girls that want to pledge, we should be happy because there's all these other sororities, like I guess they were talking about, that are not part of the Divine Nine, that people are pledging, and we should just be happy that anybody wants to pledge.
Okay, so what she's arguing in those last few clips is a slippery slope. There are people who try to argue that gender is a social construct, yes. However, that idea goes against the laws of the universe. And she's scared that her organization is going to start treating gender as leniently as they have started to treat race. I mean, there are sororities in America who have started to admit men and, admit them because they are trans women now. And maybe she's scared that her organization is going to start doing that. But gender isn't a social construct. Either you're born with a vagina or you aren't. And it's easy for an organization like that to gatekeep based on gender. Either you have a vagina, like I said, or you don't. There are a minuscule amount of people who have both, but most people don't. Usually an individual born under those special circumstances will focus on the body part that works. Anywho, I don't believe that gender is a social construct, but I do believe that race is a social construct. And the idea of blackness was created by English slaveholders. They wanted to control the minds of their captives, so they had to do it by creating blackness. They convinced these people that they were not really people, that they were inferior subhumans who didn't have the intelligence, the discipline, or the willpower to live as free people. They had to convince these people of this so that they would choose to surrender to the horrors of slavery. And as she pointed out about Ethiopians, not all darker people consider themselves to be black. Ethiopia is a country that was never colonized, whose people were never enslaved in the West, and whose heritage also includes ancestry from the Caucasus Mountains, Caucasian people. So, she also mentioned that her sorority once denied a mixed race American girl. The girl wanted to get in touch with her black side, but they rejected her. And these are people, people like her, the people who made the video. They're usually the ones who claim mixed people like Obama and Kamala Harris is black when they can publicly align themselves with those people's excellence. But behind closed doors, there they go, pushing them out of blackness. As soon as they get the first opportunity to flex any power, they reject this girl. On the other hand, people like this content creator are also quick to call out colorism and accuse a mixed woman like the one that her organization rejected of having a superiority complex. Anyway, let me play another clip for you.
Just adding, I'm not voting for somebody just because they're black and I'm black, or just because I was raised as a Democrat or a progressive. No. Once I started thinking about my own self-interest, y'all, it is black women that make up stuff like BLM. It is black women that pass laws saying defund the police. It is black women who are always trying to include just nonsense and effery in our spaces. You know what I mean? They're the ones that, oh, he killed somebody. That's okay. Don't prosecute him. These are the same people that were, critiquing Kamala for what they thought she sent thousands of black men to prison. Like, I'm sorry, if they were committing crimes, yeah, that's where they should have been sent to.
So in that last clip, she said that she will not vote for Kamala Harris just because she's a so-called black woman. And she also mentions that organizations like BLM, Black Lives Matter, are corrupt and encourages degeneracy. She seems like she embraces merit in some ways. She embraces electing the president based on merit. She doesn't like how Black Lives Matter, that movement tries to help criminals and people who commit crimes from being prosecuted. So she has a merit based way of thinking in some ways, but when it comes to her sorority, she is a full blast racist. She says that black women are always trying to include nonsense and effery in our spaces. But selecting the best quality women into sororities, regardless of race, sounds like the opposite of including nonsense and effery. It's actually raising the bar. And maybe that's her fear. Maybe that's part of the reason why she wants to exclude women of other races into her sorority. Because she fears that there will be fewer black women represented. There will be fewer black members because if they have a high barrier to entry or high requirements to be members, that more people of other races will get selected. It seems like she's scared that these high achieving women of other races will outshine the members who are so-called black women. And she doesn't see how admitting members of all races perpetuates positive stereotypes about so-called black women in culture. It shows how this culture is revered and valuable. And gatekeeping other races of women out of these organizations, it limits the reach of the sororities. It prevents other women from associating the culture of so-called black people with something sacred and dignified. When something is good, everybody wants to be a part, right? Wouldn't it be powerful if American women of all races were united under the colors chosen by the founding members of her sorority? But hey, what do I know? I never did get to pledge. I wanted to. But honey, I did not get picked. Anyway, dolls, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk soon.